So, welcome back for this second session of the day. I will be moderating this session. My name again is Commissioner Washington Opiyo-Sati, the Vice Chairperson, the Commission on Administrative Justice. Like we said, also known as the Office of the Ombudsman. So this session, we have our panelists here, and we've organized it in such a way that we want to have this discussion to celebrate this International Day for Universal Access to Information. And I'm sure we all enjoyed the first morning session, but now let's focus on this second session. We want to make this session as interactive as possible. I will ask the panelists a few questions, but then before we start, let me take this time to thank you, all the panelists, for joining us today for this discussion. We know it's a representation of different stakeholders. We have the civil societies at the panelists. We have a CAJ commissioner. We have a media, Council of Kenya represented. We have, of course, journalists represented by Amwick, Article 19, among others. They will introduce themselves later. So let's just go to the discussions. To begin, let me start by allowing the panelists to introduce themselves. Just tell us briefly your names, the organization that you represent. Without having to go for more details, we'll have more questions after that. Let's start with my immediate left.
Good morning. I'm sorry. Good morning, everybody. My name is Sandra Musoga from Article 19 Eastern Africa. I'm a Senior Program Officer, Transparency, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next.
Hello, my name is Vincent Ngere, Deputy Kenya Editor at Africa Check, and I'm very happy to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maslin Nyambala. I'm the Executive Director, Association of Media Women in Kenya.
Good morning. My name is Dina Ondari. I work at the Media Council of Kenya as the Manager for Accreditation and Compliance, where within the docket is where we deal with issues of safety and protection of journalists, access to information, and of course the whole issue of press freedom.
Good morning. My name is Lucy Dola, Commissioner from CAJ, and also designated Commissioner Access to Information. I'm happy to be here and looking forward to this discussion.
Thank you very much, our panelists, for that wonderful brief introduction. And to the audience, I believe we are settled down. Now, I will have, of course, questions directed to each panelist related to your area of expertise and your area of experience. And of course, we will give you 3 minutes each to, please let's stick within the 3 minutes to make comments so that we can also save time. And also later, allow the audience to ask other questions that they may be having to you. I know we are online, so I don't know if we'll be picking questions from online. The IT people will let us know, and then after that, we'll have Victor to come in and continue with that. My first question is a question to all of you. And this, I will ask you to just use 1 minute to respond to this question. Then after that, we'll build up on that. But of course, we want to follow up on today's discussion. Now, as the panelists, we all know that this year's theme for access to information, of course, is access to information, saving lives, building trust, bringing hope. Of course, if you look at the world condition that we're going through, the pandemic, of course, caused by COVID-19, we want you as the panelists to just comment. How does access to information save lives? How does access to information? the country, of course, you know the situation we are in right now, there are problems that we are experiencing in terms of COVID. But then, how will access to information help in terms of building trust? 1 minute each. What do you think, and how access to information will help on this? Let me start with Madam Sandra.
Thank you very much. And I think for me, as an access to information advocate, there's never a time that access to information became clearer or easier to explain, or the right of access to information and its application, other than this COVID-19 pandemic, which globally has meant life and death. And for me, what is most illustrative is I think we go through questions of asking ourselves, you know, there was a time when even in the European countries, things looked very dire. People were being picked off the streets and, you know, entire populations were dying. And the question, you know, was like, you know, how did that happen? And it is a matter of information. If you pick a case of Italy, for instance, and you know any analysis at whatever level that has gone on as to why was Italy hit so hard with this pandemic, it was about information or the lack of information or misinformation or disinformation, whatever level you want to put it as. Because the initial communication of the Italian government to its people was like, this is a flu, relax, you don't have to panic. Our health systems are A1, you'll be able to handle this and go about your lives, go to school, go to work, and you know, go about your social activities. And I think, and that really just became the crux of the matter. And that also meant those of us who had not yet, it had not yet really become prevalent in, you know, jurisdictions like this one, were able to learn from that and to prepare. So there was never a time information for me was more critical or easier, you know, to bring home than a time of COVID-19 pandemic. And that's why we say information can mean life or death. And the other issue is there was never a time it became more instrumental. Instrumentality here refers to the fact that right information can enhance your other rights. So in this case, the right to health, the right to life, the right to associate, everything dependent on what information do you get from government, from your government, of, you know, from, you know, and it was a global thing, you know, it was a global thing. That was the other interesting, I think, twist to it, is that we look at it contextually, but this is one of the time where, you know, the context applied everywhere. And so it became very instrumental. And even if you look at why the US had an issue at the WHO level with China, and they've even pulled out, so you can see even the geopolitics around things has been affected, was that they said information received initially, right after the pandemic came into play from China, was not factual, it wasn't timely, the WHO did not enforce the standards that were required, and as a result, this pandemic spread more than it should, and other countries were not prepared. And the impact of it on geopolitics will be very, very big. And so you see the role information plays, and you can never underestimate it during this time. When I go to the issue of trust, is that what has then that information meant in terms of enhancing transparency and accountability around issues like COVID? I know there are a lot of issues. If we come now back to our context, there are a lot of issues. Kenyans are grappling with questions more than answers about how we've then handled it. You know, issues around resourcing are there. Issues around, you know, even how we are planning ahead are there. Issues around what is informing decision-making at this point is there. And so beyond that information level, which there was some attempt at least to spread information, I think the issues of trust will now speak to accountability and transparency, and they are still unraveling right now. And I think that is where, going forward, we will need to see how it's handled. If you look at the issue of children going back to school, you know, that is the next thing we are grappling with in a few weeks. Information around that. And have we been given enough information to then say, we are comfortable as parents, as guardians, as citizens, that our children will go back to school, measures will have been undertaken, the money that will be there will be utilized rightfully, and all this, you know, comes into play. And so,
Sandra, thank you.
Yeah,
Sandra,
so that's what I have to say.
We'll come back to you.
Thanks,
Vincent.
Socrates.
Vincent, please.
Okay.
1 minute, please. We'll come back to you.
Thank you. I want to take this slightly away from COVID-19 because people, if you're talking about saving lives, there are other threats to life than COVID. A few years ago, we all remember the Solai Dam tragedy in Nakuru County. It was a dam that collapsed. The Access to Information Act would have told us how many other dams in the country are of a similar state, where are they located, what are their coordinates, latitude and longitude, when were they last inspected, who owns them. That is the kind of access to information request that can save lives. And that is the kind of access to information request that we want to see journalists filing. That is the kind of access to information request that will increase trust. We know that the International Budget Partnership last year published a report that showed that of 7 budgetary documents around the country, of all the 47 counties, only Elgeyo Marakwet County published all 7 on their website. One county. That is how you build trust. You put all the information on their website. And if only one county out of 47 is publishing the information they need to on their website, then you can see the problem. So if we're going to build trust and we're going to save lives, we have to show what the people whose job it is to prevent death are doing. We have to show the people who are charged with saving lives and funding for saving lives. One of the important questions that we asked at Africa Check was, how many people are members of NHIF? And if you look at the NHIF cover today, how many of what all the registered members have a valid cover? If they go to the hospital today and pull out their card, how many are actually going to get care because their cover is up to date? And if, because of COVID, people have lost income and they have been kicked off their insurance, how many more people are going to lose care? So those are the kind of questions that access to information can uncover. And if we want to build trust and we want to save lives, then the Act has a very important role to play. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Marceline.
Yes, for me, looking at just how access to information can save life. From the onset of COVID-19, we saw that the information flow with regard to where somebody could get information on even the guidelines of quarantine were very limited. So at the beginning, people were arriving at the airport and not very clear how to proceed. And so there was an opportunity for this information to be circulated, and I thought that we got infections as a result of that confusion at the beginning. When we look at the data around even the infections, it has not been very, very clear exactly where this data is coming from exactly. You know, so if there was going to be, this is a kind of information that again, much more demand was required so that just to build trust. And also looking at just how we, businesses, because there's been a loss of jobs, loss of income. I saw a statistic talking about the number of businesses that have been supported even with government funds. But nobody knew, you know, because we are in the network, nobody knew when this information was circulated, and nobody knows exactly who has been given these funds. So again, in terms of just rebuilding the businesses and creating resilience, because this is an area that we have been working in collaboration with women's enterprises, in seeing how women's businesses can be rebuilt and how we build resilience. We need to make a demand.
How public expenditure, for example, is being done, or funds allocated to COVID-19. So access to information is at the center of transparency, especially when it comes to issues of governance and public expenditure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lucy.
Good afternoon. Is it on? It's morning. Good morning. Yes, as a Commission on Administrative Justice and the Oversight and Implementation Agency, we are here to state very clearly that access to information which is trustworthy, timely, and accurate does actually save lives. It does also give hopes, and it may be the only right at the moment during COVID which should be enhanced in any country. Further, we have seen that as soon as COVID struck Kenya, it was dark. But the minute the government, that is the executive, came up with guidelines, protocols, and the way to do things, which were popularized by the media themselves, by other government agencies, and we got to know how to behave. We got to know where to seek more information or where to seek medicine. We got to know where to isolate. We got to know how to live, not just at our place of work, but even at home. That is when we saved lives. And when we wrote down the access to information and we stopped following the guidelines, we stopped looking for information, actually we were struck by COVID. And as soon as we went back to what we were told to do by providing messages, information, we have been able to go back to the right track. So for us, we have seen access to information, like Sandra said, being live online. The spirit of ATI can be felt, can be seen, can give hope to this country. And we have also seen the proactive disclosure principle in action. Before, people are not giving these guidelines online, everyday updates. In fact, they were hidden, maybe in their website or in their boardroom. But currently, proactive disclosure is all over, not just by the executive, which formed the Committee on COVID-19, but also the judiciary itself. The judiciary and the agencies which deal with justice did come together, took on board the guidance issued by the Ministry of Health, and used it as their baseline to come up with information to their clients, to their customers, and we were able to dispense justice. And when we dispense justice, you're also saving life and giving hope that life can go on. Further, we saw Parliament coming up with their own guidelines, still guided by the Health Ministry guidelines, and were able to pass budget to buy PPEs. We are also saying that as a commission, we have seen requests being answered. Actually, ministries have realized that we need to answer questions. We need to give information. If at all we want to save lives, we want to have hope for our people. Even the Ministry of Education had to come out and talk to us, because all of us were at home with our children. They had to use media, all other channels of communication, and tell us what to do with our children. At times, they even told us how to buy food, that when you go to the market, this is how you approach the marketplace. And how else, as a commission, have we seen access to information being implemented? We have seen records and digitization as a need for each and every government institution, and we want to commend each and every institution which is talking of digitization, including the Ministry of Information. My 2 minutes are up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you very much all the panelists for agreeing with us that access to information is a very essential tool, for saving lives and, of course, building trust, especially during this COVID period. You've given different examples, the guidelines that have been shared, and that is what Kenyans need, the information they all need, and we hope and pray that everyone will be able to adhere to these protocols. And especially, Commissioner, you've mentioned about proactive disclosure, of course, knowing how the funds are being used, and that will enhance accountability. So all of you have really mentioned on different aspects, and I really want to thank you for that. Now let me come to specific panelists. Let me go back to, of course, now to each of you. And in this part, I will want to ask now Mr. Vincent, the Civil Society of Kenya, from Africa Check. please just have a discussion with all of us. I know the civil society have been very vocal, especially during this pandemic period, and you've called for availing of information, on COVID-19. Some of the CSOs have even gone to court to just see and how this creates awareness. So share with us briefly, Mr. Vincent, what has been your experience as CSOs? And how has the civil society been able to, hold the government accountable, make sure they are always accountable in everything they do, especially at this time of COVID? We know most of them have been focusing a lot on the pandemic, of course, other than the issues of accountability. How has the CSOs make sure that the government remain accountable? Mr. Vincent.
Thank you very much. Just before I take a stab at answering the question, I think that question is probably best suited to Sandra from Article 19. Let me just begin by saying that. But as Africa Check, we are a media-focused non-governmental organization. We are a fact-checking organization. And to us, the access to information has been very important when we want to check facts, when we are checking claims that have been made by public officials. It is very important for us to be able to find information. Recently, we published a report on the number of teenage pregnancies in the country. And while working through that report, what we realized was even if we did find some numbers that other non-governmental organizations had found, it was not the same as going to the government and asking them for the information. So I think that one of the things that we think that government needs to do is to just be, there is certain information that is needed, especially around health, right? Whether it is, even if they may feel that it is politically sensitive, so the number of teenage pregnancies, the number of roads built, the number of whatever it is that it may be, it is very important for government to avail such information, to make such information available to the public so that we can check what is said. We need to remember that in a democracy, life in a democracy is about making choices. Not just at election time, but generally about everything else. And to make the right choices about a democracy, we need the right information. And I think what the events in the United States are showing us is if you have the wrong information and you make the wrong choices, you will pay. You will pay up. There's a price to be paid for that. So for us to get the right information, we need to be we need to be publishing the correct information on all kinds of things. So for example, if you're talking about health, for example, I think we all remember a couple of years back where Kiambu County had an incident of babies dying, right? A whole number of babies died in 2 months, and everyone was wondering, what is the mortality rate, for example? What are the figures? So those are the figures that we should be able to access so that we understand what the situation is. Because even if certain information it does not look good, looks politically tough, but it is still essential that we know. It is still essential that we know. There is certain information that is desperately needed in our communities. For a report that details every year how many people die from electrocution. But we know it happens. People step on live wires, they get electrocuted, and they die. When was the last time you saw a yearly publication that said this is the number of people that got electrocuted? Those are things that we need to be told. So, and it's very much in keeping with the theme of saving lives, right? So, we can't be thinking about official secrets all the time, especially where we are saving lives. We have to change our mindset on that so that we can really save lives, then we can really save lives, because a big part of saving lives is actually knowing, and the information often is with government. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent. And sorry that we ambushed you with that question, but then you've really responded to it very well. And you thought that Sandra can also comment on that. Maybe she will. We will, of course, give an opportunity for Sandra to also make an observation over the same question. But then also comment on issues around development partners as well at this period, because you know Article 19 has been more focused as well on not only at national level but also county level and international level as well. Please comment on the same questions on how we ensure that the government remains accountable, but then add on it, as development partners, what are you doing during this period, especially of COVID, and what measures your institution has adopted to promote access to information during this specific period. Sandra, please.
So thanks, Vincent, for throwing me under the bus first. My comment, I think, to the question that you gave to Vincent, first of all, is that I think there's been some attempt by government during this time to give information. There's been some attempt. I mean, we see the daily press briefings, and we see, some numbers out there, and we see, some decisions communicated. Has that met the threshold? For me, not yet. Because if we are talking about accountability, those are now the issues beyond. We're still in a pandemic, and there was a crisis period. But beyond that, and because we are aware that this situation persists for some time, it's a long term, as we are being told. We are going to do life differently for some time. And what does that mean in terms of accountability and transparency? And that's why I say, for me, to an extent, but the thresholds are not being met. Commissioner has talked about proactive disclosure. And for some months now, what has been this proactive disclosure is the daily press briefings by government. Are we saying that that is all the information that is required? As I said, there are a lot of questions that are now coming up that require answers, that requires that fact check that Victor is talking about, regarding, expenditures, so, financial openness there, regarding even how budgeting is being done right now, regarding what is available even from those development partners or wherever, and regarding decisions that are being made. So I think for us as Kenyan civil society, and for those of you who went to court, and for those of us who are considering things of accountability and transparency, that exactly was where I think we start seeing the rain beating us in terms of Kenyans not understanding rationale behind decisions and what is going to guide those decisions in the long term. One of the things that has brought a lot of issues, for instance, is during this time, a lot of regulations and guidelines have been passed on a lot of things. A lot of them are on procurement. And yes, we can use the reason that, this needed to be quick and this was, but, that in itself raises issues in terms of, are we sure what is in the regulations then, in terms of access to information, speaks to keeping citizens informed and putting processes and structures that, even though they're subsisting during a COVID-19 time, are adhering to transparency and are adhering to access to information, participation, all that we know should be happening within processes. And I think we need an audit of these regulations and guidelines, honestly, because if they're going to be in place for a while, do they at least even have some provisions within them? Even if we couldn't do a public participation process, but do they have provisions within them that ensure information will be proactively disclosed regarding those those regulations and guidelines? So such issues then become very pertinent, because that is what will now guide government practice, state practice, on how they deal with very important issues regarding COVID, which is going to subsist for a while. So for us, has accountability been met? Personally, not yet. And personally, that is where we should now be focusing on in terms of process and in terms of even that audit. How are we monitoring? How are we auditing? How are we engaged? There is now room to engage. And I think this has called for us to act differently. This is the first time I'm in a room like this for such a long time. I've actually seen feedback. I've actually, not seen most of your faces, I think almost since last year. So that tells you there's a new way of doing business. And so still, how do then government processes convert to that, to ensure we are not saying that, no, we could not meet, no, there couldn't be a public participation process. It's possible. And that brings me to the development partners as well. We have had to change the way in which we also think about how things are, or how we conceptualize interventions, and to work with, population, civil society, institutions, to see how do we still continue to support each other to work on access to information, transparency account, even during this time. So, a lot of us, for one of the major things that happened this time is the high-level political forum at the UN regarding the SDGs. It still had to continue. It's a global thing, but we said that, it has to continue, and Kenya was one of the countries reporting on what they have done with regard to the SDGs. And it had to be reported, and we had to generate a report. So I think part of the development partners' responsibility is to understand that now more than ever, this is not the time to pull out your support, on transparency and accountability, on support to important oversight bodies like the CAJ. This is the time to intensify. This is the time to work with them. This is the time to think differently about things and invest still in those ways of doing things. And also look at ourselves. It also, has called for an internal reflection on development partners and CSOs, that much as we keep saying, about accountability and transparency, are we having the same mechanisms, in the same mechanisms within our entities? Like the WHO has been challenged so much during this time. It's been like, are you being partial? Are you really being, can people depend on what you're saying or not? And you're backing some of these countries. So I think that's what I would say regarding the CSOs and development partners.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Commissioner Lucy. Sandra has already pointed out, the responses from the government sometimes is not satisfactory. And of course, the issues of accountability, of course, does not meet the threshold from the CSO's eyes and the development partner. Now, as a commission mandated to, oversight, please talk to us and tell us what have been the challenges that the commission has been going through to ensure that, matters around accountability are well handled. In particular, what are the solutions that you are, as a commission, proposing to see if we can address some of the concerns from our CSOs represented?
Thank you, and I'll start where Sandra stopped, that it is the right time to audit all our policies, all our guidelines and regulations, which were issued during COVID-19. It is the right time. And I take this as a challenge. The first challenge that CAJ, not just under ATI Act, but under the CAJ Act, where we have a section which provides that CAJ can give advisory opinion on its own motion to all governments to amend certain laws, to come up with certain policies. And I support what you have said. This may bring accountability in our work. Further, we know that we talked about requests which came to us. We talked about in the morning that we were able to give or to provide information to about 80% of the requests which came to us. What happened to the 20%? They were not responded to. And that is a challenge to us. And one of the areas where response was limited was obviously on accountability, on transparency related to COVID funds. And that is where, as a commission, we have taken it from. And the solution has been, from our side, is to move out to all government institutions, circulars. We have issued letters. Our chairperson talked about the letters we sent to COG, and we have seen response. We have also requested that all county governments should come up with their ATA Act so that they are able to respond to accountability in a better way, to customize it so that they address the nitty-gritty issues Victor is talking about. Because if you lump them together, you will not make it. So as a commission, we want to go deeper and go to the county and also not leave the national government out of it. Further, we have seen that all of us went digital, all of us are using ATM. Okay. Am I out of time? No. I have seen you nodding. I've seen you nodding, so I wonder. So we have seen that we must all use technology. And how do we use technology and request documents from government which are not digitized? So to us, that is a challenge. We have Section 17 of our ATI Act, which requires us to insist that all public documents are in a digital format and in a usable way, in a language which is understood, not just at Nairobi, but at the county level. What are we supposed to do about it? We talked in the morning about the regulations, which are not yet in place. We hope to address that in the regulation. And today, we are happy to report the Ministry of ICT did agree that the solution will be in making sure all documents in government are digitized. And we will follow on that. That's the solution we are offering. Finally, there are many others, but I'll just talk about those ones. Finally, we do know that we have a serious challenge on information requested by persons with disabilities. We have not been able to articulate this section of our act, and what we have agreed is that we want to team up with all civil societies dealing with persons with disabilities. We also want to team up with our donors, Article 19 being there, and the Media Council, so that we come up with solutions. We do not have solutions. We cannot pretend that we have solutions. And as a commission, you also know our resources are limited. So the solution we are offering is that we will provide something in our regulations, but we team up with our partners to give us better solution. But what have we done as a commission? We have been able to work with the Council for Persons with Disabilities so that they input something in the regulation. And we hope that once the regulations are allowed, we'll come up now with other small guidelines to help the council implement that section of the act with ourselves. Yeah, I think my time is up. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner, for clearly elaborating what we, as an oversight implementing body, are trying to ensure, to make sure we realize right to access information. It guides me now to Madam Marceline from Amwick. You've heard from what the Commissioner has said, the different efforts that we as a Commission are putting in place to ensure that Kenyans are able to enjoy their rights as is enshrined in the Constitution. As journalists or representatives of journalists, what has been your experience during this period? And what do you think should be, the kind of interventions that you can, comment on to help us, on the challenges that we have right now? Do you think we are doing enough, or what more needs to be done? Because, journalists need information when they're doing their investigations. What are the suggestions, Madam Marceline?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Opio. Our experience currently, we have been telling COVID-19 stories with partners, including Media Council of Kenya and Women in News. So we are telling the social impact of COVID. And part of the stories include stories on transparency. However, the challenge often is that we do not have a response. Sometimes you need to verify a story. Sometimes the journalists need to verify a story. So it is not, so the information is not forthcoming. And according to the Act, the person who is giving the information may delegate. So you have an expert, the head of organization, or it is the police. You need a confirmation, and sometimes they don't pick up your phone. They give you promises, you go, they are not there. And we have requested that if you're not there, or if you're not able to respond, are you able to delegate? Or even just get back and tell us this information is not yet verified. So even sometimes also getting access to just government people or their email address, even just email address. You want to invite an officer, and even just getting a response sometimes from the office, from some of the ministry. At the moment, I will not mention the ministries, but somebody can ask me in confidence, and I'm able to give and even channel the emails that I sent requesting. I can share with you the emails. So you want to invite a person to your meeting, but you actually cannot even get their email, and you ask several officers, we want to invite this person to our meeting. This is a crucial meeting regarding this particular sector, but you cannot access an email, you cannot get a response, and this is really a challenge. So I want to believe that this is part of the access to information. We have also been training, we have work with community radio groups, because they are the ones who are in touch with communities. So on just reporting, issues to do with accountability, issues to do with transparency, issues to do with social justice. So we really need, even in terms of social justice, to just know, and this is very relevant to even the whole issue about the 2/3 currently, that in all these counties, what is the representation of groups that are covered under the affirmative action? So this kind of information, but transparency, we're trying to, having the journalist monitor and say, this project was to be funded, how far has it gone? Tracking it on the digital. So that is work in progress that is currently going on. Maybe next time I'm able to give feedback. But we are tracking some of the projects that were put in the budget. So so just like I said, in terms of the COVID funds, how much is it, who has received it? Part of the frustration is that the confirmation, the sources, the government being able to confirm this kind of stories. So what more needs to be done? I think for us as media, in terms of the people responding, let us have the channels that if this person is not available, who will be next? Because if your story is not confirmed, then the story is often half-baked, because you want to get comments from 3, but you also want to get a comment from the ministry or state organ that is actually responsible. So this is undermining our work in terms of freedom of expression, freedom of information. Like I think Dina said, the public really trusts the media. And for us to be able to maintain this trust, for us to have the people who are reading, our audiences, trust us, we need to have this feedback verified, confirmed, or denied, or at the very least say that we've received your request, it's not yet confirmed, and we will get back to you, so that you are able to quote that in your story, so that you are not accused that you have published a half-baked story, that it's demonstrated that the effort has taken place. So we need that kind of feedback. But it would be better to just have that confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marceline. Dina, from Media Council of Kenya. You are an institution, of course, mandated to look at the journalists, the disciplines, among other things, as an oversight body, an independent oversight body. During this period, please just share with us what has been your experience, when taking or undertaking your oversight mandate to make sure that the discipline is maintained.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I want to start by saying that during this COVID-19 period, the Council has really strived to facilitate the work of journalists, and of course it's part of our core mandate to ensure that they are able to access not only the information that they need, but the places of work. And we went further even to facilitate critical non-editorial staff working in media houses to ensure that they are able to move around even beyond curfew hours. When we had containment measures, we ensured that we issue documents that will allow media workers to go beyond the boundaries, that the ordinary Kenyan was not able to go. All in a bid to ensure that media brings to the public the information that they need to know, but they are not able to access because of the COVID-19 guidelines. But more than that, we have had several challenges. We understand that the COVID-19 situation is unique for everyone, and so we might have had lapses here and there, friction with security agencies trying to enforce guidelines. So we recorded quite a number of violations or restrictions that violated the rights of journalists to move around. We have had more than 20 cases just between March and August 2020 related to COVID-19, journalists being denied the opportunity to go to places where they should be to get the information. And so as part of our advocacy work, we do a lot of engagements with we have had conversations and dialogues with the police because they are the ones that are charged with the mandate of enforcing the guidelines. And also if a journalist find themselves in the line of fire or they have been attacked, they are the same agencies that we work with so that they are able to facilitate the process of justice. And once or twice, we have had worked with CAJ to write to the institutions that are violating these rights of journalists to access information. And we are hoping that even as we have signed the MOU today, these collaborations will go further, not just to respond, but to ensure that we prevent the scenarios that we have seen. Because one of the biggest challenges we have noticed is that journalists, most journalists are not aware on how they can utilize the right to information to access or even to make a basic request so that then they can utilize that information to do their investigative stories, to do their public interest stories. So today is very important to us because we believe that the MOU now sets the official structures that we can use to collaborate, to train journalists, and also to reach out to public officials because there is the demand side of access to information where the journalists are, and there is the supply side. So if you train a journalist about the right to access information and you don't train that public official who is the custodian of the information, then you would not have achieved much. So we are hoping that training and sensitization is going to be one of the main solutions that we have proposed and one that we are going to undertake to ensure that there is sharing of information to enhance trust and transparency. I'm happy that Commissioner spoke about the issue of the possibility maybe of relooking at the guidelines and the laws that we have on access to information, because when we talk about doing things differently, it means that even the manner or the forms in which the information is going to be availed has changed. So I'm interested to have a conversation or to know how does the law protect the rights of the requester or to the person who seek information to access electronic forms of information, because we don't want a situation where you are going to a request for a document and you are told, no, we don't want any hard copy requests from you, or we can't, that physical interaction, we are trying to minimize physical interaction as much as possible. So is that protected, the electronic forms of information? Because even meetings these days have gone online, so yeah, that is what I'm referring to. And then the issue of enforcement. We have had violations, yes. We are going to be knocking on your doors, Commissioner, every now and then, so that then when there is a complaint from a journalist about their rights being violated as far as access to information is concerned, please, we are asking that you be very firm in the enforcement, so that then that is how we are going to set a precedent. That is how we are going to ensure that the culture of secrecy or just denying journalists or citizens, for that matter, information, because just the public official feels like this information should not be released, I think that should stop. And the only way we can ensure that happens, free sharing of information, is enforcing the law to the letter. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now it's 10 minutes to the hour, and we are about to conclude our session, but then I want to give each one of you 1 minute to give us comments on your way forward. Of course, the corona or the COVID has brought what we are calling the new normal. 1 minute for each one of you to comment. What are the practical steps, the practical ways, given the current situation? What are the practical ways on our way forward? Each one, starting with Sandra.
Thank you so much. I think for me, the gold standard, so to speak, would be the strengthening of our proactive disclosure measures, structures, mechanisms, oversight and monitoring about anything around proactive disclosure, because this is for the COVID and beyond. That information held by government should be put out even without the citizen requesting. Not that I'm undermining the issue of information requests, which is, I think, a very big issue within this COVID pandemic, and the fact that there are questions which have not been answered, even when they have been asked directly. But I think for us to attain what we regard as a functional access to information regime is to strengthen proactive disclosure, to work on proactive disclosure, and to put mechanisms and structures that work around proactive disclosure. And the oversight around that, Commissioner, is very important. So your role becomes very important even now, to look at what is being put out, by whom and when, and addressing any shortfalls about that. So for me, that would be my take home.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vincent.
Thank you. I am going to make two points very quickly. One, to build very quickly on what Sandra has said. Proactive disclosure has to include who does what, people, and the rationale for making decisions. I'm thinking about the counties, for example. For example, we know that in counties like Nairobi, the technical committee that decides approvals, nobody knows the members, but they're here approving developments and approvals. And in other countries, they would have to publish a report to the public that shows on what basis they decided to approve. So documents outlining decisions and the people involved who sit on all these committees, they should be named. But also, in terms of solidifying access to information, we need to see visible evidence. So every government MDA should have a website. All websites should have an access to information link. This is how you file an access to information. Ministry of Health, Treasury, Tourism, every single website should have a link that says this is how you file. Number two, whenever you go to these buildings, there should be visible, a desk, access to information here, so that citizens can see that this is the place where it is done, so that it becomes a normalized part of our daily life, that access to information is something that we expect. And also, we have to think about what is allowed. We have to change our mindset about what is allowed in access to information. So people, Victor earlier was mentioning that, if I go to a certain restaurant, is that something that should be allowed? Well, if public money has been used in that restaurant, that is our responsibility to know. So things like that. Emails between public officials discussing contracts. That is information we need to know. How did they arrive at the decision? So things like emails between public officials, are all public officials using government email addresses? Or is government business being transacted on Gmail and Yahoo? These are very important things. So yeah, that's my comment on how we need to move forward.
Thank you very much. Marceline?
Yeah, for us, media, the way forward really is to expedite access to information for media and journalists, because for us, because of the deadlines, when we require information, it is for the 1 o'clock news, 7 o'clock news, so it can't really wait. When a journalist requests for information, this requires a very rapid response. And again, like just my colleague Vincent has said, I think the email contacts of key government officials, I note that sometimes we get the information on Gmail, but whatever if we are in a digital age, if we can have access to these email contacts, because sometimes you call, there is actually no response. So basically, we would appreciate a rapid response for us in the information that we're looking for as media. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dina?
Yeah, mine will also be very short. I just want to challenge the media fraternity and the journalists to utilize the material that you have availed, to utilize the handbook that we have published, that we have launched today, because it contains very useful tips on how journalists can go about their work, how they can utilize the right to information, to access information and use it in their investigative and public interest stories, so that then we can at least deal with the challenge of not being aware of how they can use their right to information, so that then when we are demanding information, when we are complaining that public officials are not releasing information, then they don't come back to us to say, you did not request the information in the manner that is prescribed in the law, or you didn't even make the request at all. So I would challenge journalists out there in the field, make use of the tools that we have provided, so that then we can move forward. Thank you.
Yeah.
Commissioner Lucy.
Thank you. And I think mine is to say that we have really appreciated your effort, especially when you give us practical directions or actions which do not even require funds or money. So we really appreciate, because these are things that CJ can do. And therefore, my first way forward is that we want to partner with each and every one of you, so that we make ATI, like you said, a living thing within the ministry. We integrate ATI in the day-to-day activities of all MDAs in our country. And related to that, I wanted to report that in the last financial year, we received reports from MDAs, and they were able to deal with 492 requests. That is far way below the international standards. And Vice Chair, can bear me witness that in countries like China, requests are 6,000 in a minute, and us we are far much below. So our other way forward is that we truly want to work with MDAs to request them to report, because it's not that you people don't make requests, but they are not documented and they are not brought to us, so that we are able to know which one was answered, which one was not answered, and how can we make it better the way you are talking about using emails or having the liaison officer who is dealing with ATI. Further, we also want to agree that we need to do a lot more with the county government. In the last financial year, I am happy to report, like you rightfully said, only Elgeyo Marakwet reported to the commission. All other county governments did not give us a report. And that is why you have seen commission going out to try and talk to them, tell them this is a good thing. It will even help them relate more and better with their citizens. So we also want to try and work with MDS and county government. And obviously, what we said in the morning, the regulations must be finalized so that we address those gaps which we find in our law. And during pandemic, we also want to really work hard and digitize CAJ records and encourage other government offices to digitize their records to address the new norm. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all the panelists. Please allow me to bring the audience in at this juncture. If you have questions to any of the panelists, Sandra has left because she has a virtual meeting, like in the next 5 minutes. If there are any questions related to her, any of the panelists can come in and support. We've already had the different programs, the different interventions that, of course, each panelist have explained they're implementing. We've had the concern, of course, the gaps in the implementation of access to information in this country, especially at this time of COVID, which we think can really save lives and build trust. We've already had all that. So I don't know if any at the audience, you have questions to any of the panelists here? Yes, please. Feel free to just direct your question to any member of the panel.
Mine is not a question, but a comment in terms of how journalists can use now access to information. First of all, access to information for journalists is not today's story. It is tomorrow's story. If you look at most of the countries that have developed, like India, you'll find that a journalist will take their time, but using the law to start investigating a story that maybe they intend to publish next year. So that by the time that story is published, it even influences government policy. There's a time in India where a journalist, I think, took more than close to 2 years to just do a story in terms of government expenditure, how public officers were spending government money, overseas trips and everything. By the time now the story came out, Parliament had to amend a law to influence policy on how some of those things are done. So journalists must also realize that if you want to use the law, it might be a today's story, but to do a better story, access to information will enable you to do a very powerful story tomorrow that will influence a policy issue, change of law, and everything. Yeah, so they must embrace that patience. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Opani, for that wonderful observation. Any more comments, observations, questions? Yes, please.
Good afternoon. I would like to direct this question to the Office of the Ombudsman. I'm not targeting the office, it's just that getting clarification on some issues. So as I would say that one of the biggest issues we have, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic, is on how the resources are being used. What has the office done to ensure that information is available on how budgets are being allocated and how it's being used, especially the national level or in the county level, because that is one of the biggest challenges we have at the moment. Thank you.
Yes. Before Commissioner Lucy responds to that, any further questions or comments? Yes, please. And then we'll come to him.
For me, just a comment on the access side in terms of filing the access to information. I think the handbook is clear on the mechanisms on doing that. But then in terms of ensuring that you're not bombarded by similar requests from journalists. So for instance, if Amweek and Africa Check and Daily Nation and Citizen and CNN and Al Jazeera wants to find out mechanisms and protocols of ensuring that a certain tender was taken into consideration versus another one, how do you ensure that you have streamlined request? Is that even a possibility that you can also look into, just to ensure that the lockback is not too much? And I think I was also looking at, yes, the information, the access to information, it is public to Kenyans, and anyone can file it. But then to what extent perhaps it's not the role of MCK, perhaps it's not the role of the commission, is it going to the grassroots to ensure that there's a proper understanding of how this works, even though it is enshrined in our constitution? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gentleman here.
Kuna yeyote aelewi Kiswahili? Pengine swali langu ni kuuliza tu, ndio tumezindua kitabu hiki, lakini swali ni je, kuna ile swala la itifaki, yani protocol. Pale katika upande wa serikali unapata kwamba kwa kweli unaambiwa mimi sizungumza ni yule, enda kwa yule kwa sababu ya kufuata protocol. Sasa sijui pengine ndio tumefanya uzinduzi huu, upande wa protocol kama serikali nao itakuwa vipi?
Okay. Thank you very yes, I saw a hand here. Yes.
It's a follow-up to the same question. Within the government structures and the officers, are they aware of this act? Have they been, has there awareness created on this? Because beyond the questions of accountability, there's also certain information that journalists seek. Maybe giving an example of agricultural information on extension services. And you'll find an extension officer telling you, I am not allowed to give that information. And this is information that is meant actually to assist the farmers, who are the audience, to improve their agricultural activities. So are the officers actually, government officers, and this is beyond just agriculture. I think it cuts across the sectors, health, and the other sectors within government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lucy and Media Council of Kenya can comment on even the issue of protocol. Of course, some officers feeling they cannot share information, what also the lady has shared about. A quick response to that.
I'll start because mine is short. In terms of protocols, I think the Act clearly, and even the book explains who should give information. So in every institution, you will have someone, and I'm sure Commissioner Dungu can correct me if I'm wrong, an information access officer. Yeah, an information access officer. That is the person designated to give you information. So for example, if you walk across to Central Police Station now and you need information, you might find a constable, you might find the OCS, you will find the office of the OCPD. If you approach the officer and tell him that you need information regarding to a case maybe he's investigating, he will of course deny you. He will tell you that I'm not allowed to give you that information, because they also operate within. They have internal standing orders that guide them. So if they give you the information, they are putting their job on the line. So they will simply refer you to the OCPD, for example. Now, in case that OCPD is not available, or you call them and they are not available, they might want to delegate. They'll tell you, speak to the OCS. So sometimes it's also good to understand how the environment in which the person that you are seeking information from is operating. And I'm sure Commissioner will expand on that as far as the law is concerned. In terms of creating awareness and going to the grassroots, yes, we are on that, and we appreciate that this is not going to be a sprint rather, it's a marathon, because the need for awareness is huge. most public officers operate within the secrets, Official Secrets Act environment. So it will take time for us to re-engineer their thinking, to start telling them that, giving information about something that is going to portray your offices in a negative light is not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that we have to respect the mandate of each of us. If the media, if the citizen asks for information, you have an obligation to give it to them, whether it's negative or positive. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. And we have other officers from the Commission. Perhaps they can comment, and I am directing my question to Viola, because she is here, she's the director ATI, and she can say something because she is here. Especially, and I'm relating, is it relating? Delegating the question on public education. What are we doing as a commission so that we build on what Media Council has said? And yeah, and the other one is the request.
Yes, and of course on the issues of funds and the information not being shared.
Thank you very much. I didn't quite get the second question, but I'll comment on advocacy. We have done trainings for public entities. We have done trainings for information access officers from all the counties. We have done training for the same information access officers from the national government, that is the ministries, departments, and agencies. So far, we receive reports from them on the requests that they have received and whether they have granted these requests or declined the requests. The next step that the Commission is going to take is to train the people who they have delegated this role to according to the Act.
There was a question from the lady. I think it's not been answered.
The one on requests which have not been answered. So we still have to look at it. It is true that we do know that we have 80% of our requests not answered, and most of them are related to utilization of resources during COVID times. We also know that there are issues related to, or there is gray area on how much budget was given, not just to the national government agencies, but also to the county level. And this is an area where the Commission has addressed first by writing to agencies that they have a duty to disclose information as outlined in our Section 5. And our Section 5 has that issue of procurement and how much money a contract will entail, when was it given, how was it given, who was given, when will it be complete. It is there. So that is the position the Commission has taken. We have written to them. And also our chair did talk about how the Council of Governance did agree that we will team up and improve on ATI. And ATI involved also proactive disclosure of all information as per the law, Section 5. That is the way we want to address it. In case we find that we are not making headway, we will therefore thereafter resort to a determination. And a determination, like our chair said in the morning, it has the force of law. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Lucy. Let me appreciate all the panelists even for your responses. Let me recognize the other audience that we have online. I don't know, Moses, if there are any questions from online platform. Any questions? Okay, but just let's thank them for participating and for following, through this discussion. Let me thank you all for your good questions as well. There are issues, of course, that will come up from this conversation, which we can always pursue further beyond this. There are many issues, like, for example, the need to have, proactive disclosure from the national and the county government on even, funds around corona. Those are issues that are coming up again and again. CAJ, MCK, we can always partner to see how we can, pursue this. I noticed issues around digitalization of the records. Because moving forward, we all agree that this is key. People are working even from home. Public officers are working from home. How can they access this information if they are not digitized? The deadline for digitizing all the information has passed, of course, but now we need to see how we will pursue this further and make sure all the records are digitized to make sure that we conform to that. The issues around training, issues around sensitization and awareness has been repeated again and again. And of course, the panelists agree with me that we as partners, we need to see how we can handle this, not only for the public officers, but even the citizens themselves. It's very important for them to know this. They need to understand that access to information is an essential tool that can help them, achieve their economic and social rights. Look at a country like India. People who are not educated, but everyone uses access to information just to claim their rights. Here in Kenya, it appears that most journalists know about access to information, but only the journalists. But how do we make sure, even to the grassroots level, they know about access to information? That is something that has been repeated again and again, and we need to follow up on that. The issue on of course, enforcement, accountability of the funds. Yes, Commissioner Lucy has explained what we've done as CAJ. We issued a circular both to the national and the county government a while ago. And so far, we need again to follow up and even audit. Are they sharing the information proactively on their website? Of course, there's an executive order from the president, but then we need to follow to what extent has this been implemented. This is something that CAJ cannot do alone, but partnership will of course help us in this, make sure that we are able to follow up and put oversight on this. That is what we need to say. We will continue to build a partnership with each one of you so that this right can be fully and effectively realized. I think those are my quick observations, and of course the observations from the panelists. Thank you very much. Please feel free to take back your seats. Victor from MCK, let me take this back to you to tell us what next. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, colleagues, the panelists, the moderator. That was wonderful. The event is also recorded. What will also be written out of this, so I'm sure each of us will get something. So I think having heard from most of us questions to the plenary, unless there's a having had that very informative participatory discussion and a panel that observed, including the 2/3, I don't want us to dilute. See, people are using now to internalize the information, the discussion, and on behalf of the organization and the staff that were involved in organizing this event, we have benefited a lot. This discussion was very good. We have heard from the Media Council, journalist side, we have heard from the Ombudsman, the fact checkers, the civil society, and others. And I believe this should be a regular thing, not just when we are launching books, because I remember under the Access to Information Forum, we used to have an Access to Information network under TI, and by then, I don't know who, that forum of access to information. There used to be a forum a working group or something that used to bring together people who work in this sector. And we could meet frequently, I mean, just to have discussion, new developments, what is happening, and it used to be very good. So let's encourage. In fact, in addition to the law that we are mentioning here, if you looked at a lot of administrative codes in our various laws, like the CDF Act. The CDF Act says all projects that are funded by CDF, you are supposed to write outside there and indicate. We rarely use those. Basic Education Act, if you checked, it says principals are supposed to publish all money they receive from government and put outside their offices. Those are purely access to information provisions. And other public participation. County Government Act 2012, it has a huge, so we need to push that the history of access to information has been a history of pushing. There is nothing that will come. It's like I told you, the officers who have worked in government for so many years, and sometimes changing is purely culture. It's not about that they have refused on the information, but they're thinking like when they are still stamping a newspaper, secret and confidential, you know, it's a culture. So which culture also goes away gradually. It's not something we'll just one day and say every officer. But again, within the institution, there are quite a number of institutions that are doing so well. If you ask them the information, you'll get very easily. But there are also those that are still very bureaucratic. I call for information from KDF, and they give you information so fast. KDF is so fast and very efficient. You'll be surprised. You call the police, you'll be surprised, nothing moves. And they are all in security. so sometimes, I've started learning that. But also the personal touch. I mean, also the way we engage with officers. Like Dina was mentioning, if you are looking for information from police officers, who is a gazetted officer, who can give you information and who is not authorized. You know, those are kind of things we need to engage slowly. I mean, we are looking at even before they designate officers for those offices. Most of the organizations have public relation officers and officers and public communication. What is their role? They need to be helping. The other day we had a meeting with the CEO of Brand. Dr. Marube is called Branding and Promotion Agency of Canada, and they are putting up a database of all positive things about Kenya from all sectors. How do we market Kenya as a foreign destination, investment destination, if we don't have this information? It will depend on us, the various public agencies, to share this information to them. I was talking to the people from the Archives and Documentation Center, for example. They have nothing now. That office is supposed to be receiving all documents from other government agencies for safe custody, the Archives and Documentation Center. People have refused to give them anything. So we have lost a lot of government data, which now we can't trace. When officers leave, they leave with their laptops and everything, and so you start tracing some things. It's impossible. So and this is what we are talking about, that if people continuously embrace sharing of information, sharing with relevant government agencies, it becomes easier. You can trace some of these things easily. Some of us who are working, and Violo, you said energy, that is so easy. I've done articles on access to information on the Mining Act, for example, the agreement that was signed between Kenya and Akinatalo. And it's so easy when you write to the home countries, because in countries like Canada, Britain, the access to information law is so powerful. If you wrote here to them and said, I want to know about Talo, how it's doing, they will send you all those things. So I can write an article on Talo using Canada Office access to information request than in Kenya here. And we have done it many times. So I mean, and those are just a few of the things. So we need to you remember the story on Robert Ouko and who killed him and what? That journalist used the British access to information law. We have the same information in Kenya. But he used it and wrote. Now we are buying that book at 15,000 shillings in Kenya. Yet we have that information somewhere in here. So those are just but a few. So without going too much, I know lunch is being served in the next 10 minutes. So there will be success cards to go for lunch. But without wasting, I will invite Commissioner Ndung to give us a way forward as a way of plenary. Please, Commissioner, karibu sana.
That's an ambush. Closing remarks.
Yes.
Oh. Good afternoon once more. Yes, first and foremost is to truly thank God that this event has successfully come to an end, and to say that we have been blessed to have various guests who gave us a lot of information, good messages, and a good way forward. On behalf of CAJ, our chair, our CEO, our vice chair, and the entire staff present, we truly want to thank Media Council for being present and also supporting us and agree to partner with us for the launch of the book, and also for agree to partner through a memorandum of understanding. That is very, very important for CAJ. And we promise other partners that we are ready and willing to partner with you and sign memorandum of understanding, and especially ladies. Yes, so we are looking forward to seeing you so that our director can also be coming to you freely without seeking any permission from any one of us, because we have a memorandum of understanding. We also want to thank our team who have been involved in the social media activities, including the media. We do know that the minute you send this message out there, you increase our accessibility, you increase our information out there, and Kenyans will benefit. Further, we also want to thank the hotel, because they have been able to agree even to accommodate 30 people. Not many other hotels have been agreeable. And with that, I think, Victor, we can tell everybody to go for lunch. I have not seen the success card as you called them, so I don't know whether we will see them. But before we do so, our vice chair is normally our prayer partner, so he can pray for food, if you allow us. Yes, sure. Thank you. Pray for food. I'm giving the wrong person.
Okay, let us conclude this meeting in prayer. Please, let's rise up and pray together. Our dear Heavenly Father, we want to thank you very much for this day, that you've allowed us to assemble here together after a long time of staying at home, but today we've been able to meet physically with our partners and have this conversation. It's wonderful, and it's the way that you've created for us. As human, we enjoy this experience of associating together, and we'll always give honor to you as we continue to face this challenge of corona. We thank you very much for your help in this fight, which we know we will not succeed alone, but we know nothing is hard with you. You are our creator, and you are the creator of all the universe, and we will continue to keep our eyes fixed on you for the solutions that we are seeking as men and women of this country. Our Father, this afternoon we've concluded this wonderful launch of the Access to Information Handbook, and of course the celebration of the International Universal Day of Access to Information. We want to thank you for this opportunity, and whatever it is that we've agreed and said we are going to implement, we ask for your guidance, we ask for your knowledge, and of course wisdom, so that we're able to implement this together with the different partners that we are here. As we leave, please let's travel safe to our homes. We ask for journey mercies. And also bless the food that you're about to partake this afternoon. And thank you for that wonderful provision. Thank you for everything. And we always pray, believing and trusting in Jesus' name. Thank
Upstairs. They are requesting that we give them 5 to 10 minutes to finalize to ensure the lunch is hot enough. You can also pick a copy of if you
I'm coming. Sorry. Where did you
And those who can get a few copies for the organization, please.
Kofia yangu niliacha hapa.
You can carry a few for the organization.
Kofia yangu niliacha hapa. What happened? Someone.